Welcome to MBNews, where we aim to bring forth transparent insight into consumer culture and insights into the industry so that we can make better consumer choices for our well-being and the well-being of our planet. Thank you everybody for joining. Today's topic is how election year is shaping our plate because we as humans inevitably need to eat right. So this is one of the topics that should be at the forefront and center this election year. I'm Amelia, your host and founder of Mindful Body Productions, a value-based digital marketing agency focused on elevating healthcare brands to foster meaningful change in consumer culture. All right, so with so much misleading information in our food labels, confusing and harmful substances in our food, this is something that we really need to talk about. Now, the goal of this episode is not to go into which candidate is promising what, but ultimately how we as consumers can be informed so we can make better choices for ourselves and our family. Now, in a little bit, I'm going to bring in our two speakers, Troy Casey, longevity expert, and Melissa Long, functional medicine nurse and health coach. And we will be shedding light on food policies, what consumers need to know, and how they affect our overall health. All right, let's get the show started. Welcome everybody joining. We are tuning in from LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and we are at about 247 members joining us, so thank you so much. This is our first episode, and I'm excited to see so many people tuning in from across the web. So guys, we have the capability of airing clips the audience sends us before the show. So if you have a story, if you have knowledge on this topic that we're covering, then send us a video, okay? You can go to this link or scan the QR code and input your information so you can get notified about the next show and when submissions are open. So please share with your friends and join the conversation. First, I'm going to introduce Melissa Long, functional medicine nurse and health coach. Melissa specializes in root cause healing and disease prevention, inspired by her own journey as a childhood cancer survivor. After 12 years as an oncology nurse, she transitioned to functional medicine in 2021 and is embracing a holistic approach that empowers families through nutrition, detoxification, and lifestyle change to prevent disease and optimize health. Hey, Melissa, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So I have one question for you. Why do you think medical professionals like you should integrate this information into their practice?
Oh my goodness, if we integrated nutrition and healthy living into our medical system, what a difference it would make. We would see so much less disease. And, you know, we're one of the sickest nations in the world right now. Kids are at a 54% rate of chronic disease, whereas when I was a child, it was 12%. So there's a real health crisis going on in our youth and everybody really. And so if we were to talk about how to eat to heal as opposed to eating to kill, which is what the majority of Americans are doing, we would just see a much healthier population. So my goal and my hope and prayer is that we can eventually get there where we incorporate this as a routine part of our medical system. When you go to a doctor, the first thing he starts talking to you about is nutrition. That would just be amazing to see.
I certainly agree with that, Melissa. We definitely need to have that more present within our healthcare. Now, next, I'd like to introduce Troy Casey, the certified health nut. Troy is a leading longevity expert promoting holistic balance through nature-based wellness. He's known globally for his work in the Amazonian tribes and practices in meditation and yoga, and he inspires over 1 million followers and has been featured on Discovery, MTV, Fox News, and Netflix. Hey, Troy, so happy to have you. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on, Amelia. And yeah, just to go on what Melissa had said, you know, the father of modern day medicine said, let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food. And I've been on the internet for the past 2 decades making videos, and you know, people are still confused, and it shows up in their tissues. 75% of the American people are obese or overweight. Diabetes, chronic fatigue, turbo cancers, new cancers, chronic fatigue, all sorts of issues, as well as chronic, childhood issues as well. And so the quality of food that you eat is directly related to the quality of life you lead. And again, the father of modern day medicine, Hippocrates, and the doctors have to take the Hippocratic Oath when they graduate and before they become a licensed medical professional. And the first part of that is do no harm. And so, but they forgot the food and the nutrition part of it. Food literally is medicine. I've been studying herbalism, fasting, internal purification for the past 35 years. And so what you put into your body makes a huge difference as far as health goes.
Yeah, certainly. And you look great. So that is a testament to why we as consumers should definitely care about our food and what we're putting into our bodies. So let's start talking about food labels and how misleading that they are to consumers. So firstly, from a marketing perspective, a lot of these labels like organic, natural, non-GMO, sugar-free, gluten-free, they're just buzzwords, right? So Troy, if I was going to the supermarket and you were guiding me on how to shop for foods that avoid these confusing terms, what would you advise me to do?
Well, first and foremost, to shop on the outer portions of the supermarket. The processed foods and the ultra processed foods are in the center of the store. And so fruits and vegetables, fish, meat, poultry, I would go towards regenerative farming. If you're going to buy anything in a package, it's going to be regenerative farming, raw milk, raw cheese. If you're going to eat dairy products, grass-fed, grass-finished, if you're actually going to get it from a commercial store. I recommend going one step further and go make friends at your local farmers market and meet your farmers and really know where your food comes from. And maybe actually go out and visit the farms, maybe pick up your food from the farm or hire a truck and create a CSA in your local area, a community supported agriculture system. And so get your food farmer direct from as close as the earth as you possibly can. Maybe even grow your own garden. Now, I live in the city centers and I've lived in the city centers for most of my life. And so I typically teach from what I have achieved myself. I'm not growing my own food, but I do advocate for that. I think it's a wise decision. And get your food directly from the earth as much as possible. If you get the entertainment in the center of the store, then definitely go with organic, higher quality, eliminate seed oils. If you know anything about omega-3, 6, and 9 balance inside your body, you definitely want to make sure your tissues are not gummed up with seed oils, industrial machine oils.
That's really great advice. And we do need to be aware of this misleading claims because even Tyson was recently sued for misleading claims on their beef being sustainable. So going to your local market and being able to see firsthand how your food is grown, where your meat comes from, then of course this is very helpful. Now when of course we don't all have the luxury of getting fresh food, natural foods all the time, so when we are reading labels, for example, natural label just means that it's absent of artificial additives, but doesn't include pesticides or genetically modified ingredients, which can still of course be present. Packaged foods often highlight nutrition content like high fiber, which can of course include a very obscurely high level of sugar or sodium content. So Melissa, how would you say that these ingredients affect our health and propagate disease?
Okay, well, I definitely agree 100% with everything Troy said. I'm sitting over here like, yes. It's just so important that we're eating to heal. And so to answer your question, the best thing to do is stick to whole foods. Whole foods are one ingredient and that's it. So the majority of what you eat should be whole foods. And then like Troy said, if you're going to do the processed packaged foods, try to stick to the organic, fewer ingredient labels, because the more ingredients, the more potential issues that you're going to have, especially if you're consuming these foods in excess. So I'm going to give you an example of how companies can trick on you by their food labels. Oftentimes when an ingredient goes under fire, companies can rename their ingredients or rebrand, which can be really deceptive. So you think, oh, well, this doesn't have high fructose corn syrup anymore, which we know is linked to obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. But in actuality, companies have renamed it to fructose or fructose glucose syrup or corn sugar. And if you're not consuming organic corn, 9 times out of 10, the corn you're consuming is genetically modified. Another one would be MSG. This is a flavor enhancer linked to headaches, obesity, depression, and mental disorders. That's been renamed to hydrolyzed vegetable protein, autolyzed yeast extract, or natural flavors, which can contain MSG without directly stating it. I'm going to go into more detail about what natural flavors are in a bit, but aspartame's another one. That's an artificial sweetener linked to different types of cancer and heart disease. That's been renamed to amino sweet. Trans fat linked to heart disease. That's been renamed to partially hydrogenated oils or vegetable oils. We've got food dyes. We know how bad food dyes are. They're illegal in so many other countries.
Yeah,
they
are.
cause hyperactivity in kids. They contain carcinogens, which are cancer-causing ingredients. They're linked to behavioral problems, allergies, migraines, disruption in your immune function, and they've renamed those too. They'll put color added, they'll put natural color, or for some of the actual colors like Red 40, those are now being called Allura Red. Yellow 5 is tartrazine. Blue 1 is brilliant blue. They're trying to make these sound appealing, but
Sound appealing.
They're wreaking havoc on our health.
Yeah, they definitely are. And I do have some burning questions about food additives for both of you. So technically, additives are placed in foods to conserve, sweeten, color, thicken, and even, in some cases, add vitamins and minerals. That doesn't sound so bad, but ideally, as you guys mentioned, the best source of food is in its whole state. Now, we don't all, like I mentioned, have time to make 3 meals a day or make fresh food. So Troy, I know that you are a big advocate for clean eating. And I also know you use some natural powders and supplements for added nutrition. But what do consumers need to look out for when buying, let's say, a protein powder, supplement, protein bar, or any packaged food that's intended to provide added nutrients?
Well, what I teach my students and my clients is to definitely read labels and recognize the difference between chicken poop and chicken soup. And so, because there is a difference. And I think what we see in the world today is a lot of great marketing, right? Hey, it's Jesus in a bottle, buy this, it's going to get you healthy, right? And so we see that across the board. And but if you read the ingredients, again, as Melissa was talking about, and or you know your source. So there's a lot of companies out there that use vitamins and mineral isolates. They use fillers, binders, artificial coloring, artificial flavoring, etc. And so you want to make sure that you're working with a company or you're purchasing from a company that has a direct source and or farmer direct. You also don't want, you can take some isolate sometimes, but I don't think you want to make a steady diet off of that. And then you're also going to look at things like soy protein isolate, denatured whey. If you're heating up protein powders, right? Protein is basically living tissue, right? And so if you're heating that up, then it's going to become denatured. And so eating denatured food is hard to make good tissues out of. So you want living elements. And so you can get, some powders are dehydrated, organic, straight from the farms. I've been in the herbal and superfood business for the past 20 years and pride myself on the highest quality, wild, organic, and biodynamic. And so completely bioavailable without any kind of fillers, artificial coloring, artificial flavor. There is pure stuff out there. You can find it. It's just only 4 to 6% of the food on the market is organic. So buyer beware. Get on the phone with the company. Somebody's selling you a product, marketing a product, go on their website. Look at other ingredients first, because if there are fillers, stabilizers, binders, you don't want to be ingesting that as a steady diet. And so you want to get the purest stuff as you possibly can.
Yeah, that definitely builds up. And being in the marketing industry, I firsthand understand how industries manipulate consumer culture. And this is why, for a period of time, I veered away from communications, public relations, because I was so upset at how the industry did this. And now I'm back with Mindful Body Productions and MBNews and learning about so many loopholes, such as the GRASS loophole, which means generally recognized as safe. And this pathway allows untested additives into the market, potentially hiding unknown chemicals behind terms like natural flavors. So, Melissa, for the concerned parent, what would you say, as you mentioned some ingredients, would you be able to mention some other ingredients, maybe what the repercussions are of having those additives and ingredients in your food for a long period of time are?
Yes. So I want to touch on two big things that you should really try to avoid and why, and then I'll go into a few ingredients that you also really want to avoid on top of the ones that I already talked about. Artificial flavors and natural flavors. There's a lot of confusion about what that means, so I want to clear that up. And these are on so many processed foods, and unfortunately, you can even find natural flavors in our food now. So that's another reason why you want to be reading your labels. You can't just trust that it says organic on it. You actually have to turn around and read the label and see what else is in there. With artificial flavors, these are synthetic ingredients made in a lab. They're produced by fractional distillation and chemical manipulation of various chemicals like crude oil and coal tar. They also can contain incidental additives, which are not required by the FDA to be put on the label. So those are things like sodium benzoate, potassium sorbate, propylene glycol, and it doesn't even have to say that. You can also, with artificial flavors, create a strawberry flavor without ever using a real strawberry. And then when we switch over to natural flavors, you're thinking that natural apple flavor means they took an apple and they extracted it and put it in your food. But that's not actually the case. That natural apple flavor needs to be preserved and stabilized, and it has agents added to help it mix well into the product. So when you're dealing with natural flavors, it can be 100 undisclosed ingredients that, again, don't have to be listed on the label. They can have incidental additives as well. And the FDA just doesn't regulate this. So there have been numerous times I've reached out to a company to try to find out what their natural flavors were. And they always tell me it's proprietary. Now, these are a little better than artificial flavors because they can be derived from substances found in nature. However, they can still contain preservatives, emulsifiers, solvents, and other additives, which can make up more than 80% of the formula. So it's only the flavor that's derived from natural things. And so when we're talking about consuming things like that often and not knowing what you're getting, of course, that can set you up for health issues. So I just wanted to clear up those two. And then when we're talking about ingredients that you really want to avoid, aside from what we've already listed, Troy touched on the seed oils a little bit. I'm going to add vegetable oils to that. You want to avoid both vegetable and seed oils because these are highly processed oils that go through an insane amount of processing with chemical solvents, steamers, neutralizers, bleach, and deodorizers before it even ends up in the bottle. And oftentimes these oils are genetically modified too. Now they're linked to obesity, inflammation, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and autoimmune diseases. So it's really important to avoid those. And unfortunately, we see a lot of marketing for them being heart healthy. And that just couldn't be further from the truth.
That's really sad.
So enriched flour, bleach flour, you want to avoid that too. It's not only heavily processed, but it also has those synthetic vitamins and minerals you touched on, Amelia. And those can be linked to a slew of issues too, especially synthetic folic acid.
Yeah,
50%
it's really
of the
sad.
population has something called the MTHFR mutation. And if you have that, you're not able to convert synthetic folic acid to folate. And so that can cause a big problem. So watch out for enriched flour. Watch out for preservatives like BHT or TBHQ. Those can lead to behavioral problems, cancer, food allergies, and they're also endocrine disruptors. So are parabens. And then lastly, sodium nitrate and sodium nitrites. Those are found in processed meats, and those are linked directly to cancer, particularly stomach and colon cancer. So It's hard to summarize because there are literally so many ingredients you want to avoid in your food. But I think those are some of the big ones that we see really frequently, that are just linked to a slew of health issues. So I would minimize or completely avoid those.
Yeah, and to add to that, Melissa does have an ebook, The Clean Shopping Guide, which we're gonna, her link is on her lower third, which we're gonna share in a second again. But that could be a really great resource for you guys to see what ingredients to avoid. And it's really a shame that now consumers are becoming more aware of these ingredients when a lot of the US population has issues. Now, we are seeing a lot of outrage with consumers about Kellogg's, for example, having ridiculously harmful ingredients in their US products, while Europe, they have cleaner ingredients per se. So in this last section, I'd like to talk about organic foods. Those are supposedly the better options, but still there's some obscure regulations regarding USDA organic. So for example, the USDA organic label allows up to 5% of non-organic components, which permits a certain amount of additives and processed aids that may mislead consumers that are seeking fully organic products. Now, products can still be labeled organic even if the components aren't, as they meet the 95% threshold, or even organic produce can contain pesticides modified to fit the organic industry standards. So Troy, you mentioned shopping in your co-op, local farmers market. Can you elaborate a little bit more on how you even go about finding these resources locally for people maybe across the United States? I'm not sure if this is something that's readily available. How do we come across these co-ops?
Again, over the last 20 years, I've heard a lot of arguments, and people like to say, you know, organic's too expensive, or they say it's organic, but it's not. The bottom line is as a human being, you need to play the victor, not the victim. You need to go out in a day and age like this where most people are sick, fat, sick, and nearly dead. You need to provide food for your family that's actually real food. Our grandparents used to call all this organic food situation food, right? Just food. And it just so happens that we poisoned ourselves and made it all scientifically validated. So one is going to have to do the research and going to have to source the best food possible without going neurotic, because neurosis is a mental disorder. So you can get farmer direct mail order. You can get you can go to your farmer's market. If you don't live in an area that has good food, you may want to consider moving. Food is medicine. Food is survival. It is important that you have natural food. You can either pay now, pay later, pay the farmer, or pay the doctor. It is your choice. As a human being who's lived in this economy and the shifting world that we're in, I spend a majority of my money, I invest a majority of my money on clean food, clean water, having a stable home environment that doesn't have mold and excessive electromagnetic radiation and pollution around me. I create my life so I don't live outside of my bounds, so I can have enough time to spend with my children, go into nature, get sunlight on my body. I don't use chemical sunscreens. I don't use chemicals all over my body. I don't wear plastic polyester clothing, right? I have set up my lifestyle so that I can have high frequency, raise my vibrations that are much more adept to being healthy, vital, virile, victorious in the world. And so I recommend that people spend the time, invest the time to source the best. I work with an organic superfood company. We are farmer direct. We have farms in Utah. We ship it right to people's homes. We test everything from seed to package 37 times. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter what the label says or the farmer says, etc. Once you put it into your body, your intuition should tell you whether this is good for me or it is not. And if you find a good source, stick to it. I recommend rotating everything, because what Melissa talked about, the MTHR gene, the mofo gene, right? People can't digest a lot of foods that are in our society, and it creates inflammation in the body, and this creates all sorts of problems. The same can be said with seed oils, vegetable oils. I consider seed oils and vegetable oils the same thing. It's just artificial food, right? You want real food, whatever it takes for you as a human being to go out and source the best for your bloodstream and invest wisely, because I'm here to tell you, you are worth it. You are worthy. So do what it takes to find those sources. They are available. You can always consult with me, Certified Health Nut, all over the internet. Me and my whole team help people. There are other people, Joel Salatin, Polyface Farms, North Star Bison. You can, Paleo Valley, they also have mail order. ArizonaGrassRaisedBeef.com. They're also here in the Phoenix area where I live. They have jerky. They have frozen, sent right to your door. You can find solutions, no problemo. Find a local farm and buy half a steer. Invest your savings into that, because you are worth it.
And that's so important and very valuable, Troy, because food is the primary thing that we do, right? We eat with our family, we eat with our friends, we eat breakfast, we eat lunch, we eat dinner, depending if you fast or whatnot. But regardless, there are other elements, as Troy mentioned, like your food and frequencies that do affect and impact your health, but it does start with your plate. So I do have a couple questions here. For Melissa first, I do have a question. When you do buy, let's say, organic food at the supermarket, you're in a pinch, how can we still protect ourselves from any harmful pesticides or herbicides that might be inside those organic produce?
Let me just piggyback what Troy said. I agree with everything, but also there's pollinate meats and wild pastures like Azure or other places you can order high quality food from and it be shipped. You have to live in an area where you don't have access to the farmer. And then I'm going to piggyback a little more and say, without your health, you have the majority of my life, childhood cancer diagnosis, all of the late effects from my treatment. And I ended up with an autoimmune disease in 2011 that knocked me on my ass and literally took my life away from me. I wasn't functioning if I had no quality of life. 7 years ago, I learned about all this and started changing my diet, my lifestyle, my personal care products, and radically transform my health. People will look at me sometimes and be like, you spend so much money on your food or on your products or on your health. And it's like, well, if you don't have that, you have nothing. So I 100% agree with him in regards to your health should be your first priority. This is the first generation of kids that is expected to not outlive their parents. It's a problem. It's our job. Now, to answer your question, if you have to shop at a supermarket, like Troy said, shop the perimeter. That's where the healthiest foods are going to be. And then learn your ingredients. Learn what the good ingredients are and what the ingredients are you want to avoid. If it's a label this long, you don't want it. If it's words you can pronounce, you don't want it. The fewer ingredients, better. Try to stick to organic. There is organic in the supermarkets. Most have some now. So try to stick to organic. Try to stick to grass-fed, grass-finished, pasture-raised chicken, pasture-raised eggs. You can still shop in a supermarket and get decently healthy food. But like Troy said, the best option is going to be finding a farm and going direct from farm to you. If you don't have that option, there still are possibilities. My guide walks you through all the ingredients you want to avoid. I only listed a few, but I have pages on pages of ingredients that you want to avoid in your products, in your food. I have clients that take that with them to the store and they read through it until they learn. It becomes second nature. Troy can attest to this, I'm sure. We can look at an ingredient, 2 seconds, ingredient label and say if it's good or bad. You will get to that point with consistency.
Certainly. And the fact about eating so many additives and pesticides, they do accumulate in our food. Like even when I buy quote unquote organic tomatoes at the supermarket, I soak them and they still have this yellow residue. Now, I am curious, is veggie wash good? Is it a good product to help cleanse your vegetables, or is there a better way to do so?
Here.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
No.
Yeah.
Great, awesome. So my question was, I am a bit, like, when I do buy, for example, tomatoes, I don't know if you heard that part, and I soak them, they still have this yellow residue. Now I'm wondering, what is the best product to use to clean your vegetables? Is veggie wash a good solution, or is there a better solution? Either of you.
Yeah, but I mean, home remedies before there were stores and pharmacies and hospitals and all this stuff was baking soda, vinegar, hydrogen peroxide, turpentine. These were just basic DIY, your own cleaning ingredients. So vinegar is always going to be a good one.
And
Yeah, and nowadays,
want to clean, because there are certain things that are put on your produce. So people say, oh, well, if it's organic, I don't have to worry about it. No, you still want to clean that produce as well.
yeah, certainly. We always want to clean our produce, and the natural solution is always better, because from a marketing perspective, when you create a product for a specific need. So people need to wash their vegetables, right? You can buy veggie wash, or you can buy baking soda and vinegar and wash your vegetables. So I did bring some examples so we can have some visuals. Now, this Banza pasta has been under recently some scrutiny because they have a very, very high glyphosate content, and they're promoted mainly to the celiac community, people that have certain gluten intolerances. And this product, of course, on the label has, vegan, gluten-free, low glycemic, 20 grams of protein. So you're seeing all of the buzzwords here on the packaging, right? We look at the back, and then going on, the natural and artificial flavors. For example, this bag of cookies is from a brand that's not really known as a health brand. Nonetheless, when you look at the packaging, it's brown, it's soft, it looks natural, it looks healthy, right? At the top, it has all of the buzzwords: high fructose corn syrup, no artificial flavors, no artificial colors, peanut free. They're listing all of the benefits from buying this product. And even in the back, it has a breakdown: sugar, flour, like as if it looks simple, right? If we can zoom in here so everybody can see. And then it has natural lemon flavor, which we learned that the natural apple flavor, natural lemon flavor, it all, ultimately isn't really natural. That's just a regulation. And then looking at the label, we have invert sugar, which is a type of sugar syrup. And it has enriched flour, which is indeed the first ingredient. So we can see that even from the packaging, we want to make sure that we're turning everything around. And even if we turn the packaging around and we look at the label and see that it's relatively good, like this pasta, we still want to make sure that we research the company to see if it's healthy for us. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Well,
Troy, would you like to chime in on that?
Yeah, I mean, I see all of that bait and switch in marketing. I'm here to remind you that Edward Bernays was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, who took all the psychological technology and created the book Propaganda, and then Public Relations, which turned into advertising, which is what we see in labeling and marketing and packaging today. which is synonymous with lies and BS, right? It's repackaging garbage and saying that it's okay for you. My advice to my students and people that follow my work is avoid everything that's commercial like the plague. I used to go to the Natural Products Expo in Anaheim, California, the largest natural products expo in the world. And you knew the good companies, the women that had discovered they had celiac disease from glyphosate poisoning and wheat and all these problems that we're getting from these foodborne illnesses. Sounds like Melissa went through this experience herself and healed herself using real food. And some of these products, even like Mary's crackers, for example, she tried to get rid of as many inflammatory agents as possible and make sure that she was sourcing the best organics as possible. Now, her crackers are not really food, they're entertainment, right? It's displacement food, meaning it takes more energy for your body to break down and metabolize and expel the waste from that food than it actually has nutritional value. It's still a displacement food, but that doesn't mean it doesn't taste good with some cheese, right? And so, or it's entertainment, right? Not everyone's going to have to eat, crock pot or chicken soup, every single night. And so it can be some entertainment, but everything that's away from Mary's type of quality or people that have healed themselves from something and then created an organic product, everything that's not that, avoid that like the plague. Go walk into 7-Eleven, for example, or any kind of commercial store if you find yourself on the road, right? Driving across America or anywhere, right? And there's almost nothing you can eat, according to me, or what I can feed myself. I only feed myself the best. Why? Because I am the best, right? And I treat myself that way. So if I go into a convenience store, there's nothing for me to actually eat because there is no intrinsic value. If I was starving to death, yes, there are things that I could definitely survive on, right? There's some caloric intake, if you will. But I'd rather go eat the bark off of a tree or find some mesquite and start chewing on that and getting some kind of nutrients out of the earth, right? As opposed to trying to go into the convenience store. So I see what you're trying to say, Amelia. You're trying to make, you're trying to make food out of this marketing gimmick. And I say there's no food in those packages in the first place. So turn the other way, go find yourself a farm, get yourself some organic food, connect with me, connect with Melissa, go find the real good stuff and find vibrant, healthy people that are marketing it, right? Really healthy people with good skin and vitality and strength in their bones, and follow them, ask them what they're eating. My mentor is the great Paul Chek. Go watch his video, Nutrition, the Dirt Facts, if you want to watch the best nutrition video, according to me, on the whole entire internet. And he doesn't even get into macronutrients. He talks about the soil and the nematodes and the paramagnetic rocks that take the energy from the celestial realm, the sun and the stars, and it creates vital plants that the animals eat. And then you eat the plants and you eat the animals, and we all die and go back into the earth. This is real nutrition. That stuff, the marketing on the box and the packaging and the coloring and all that, that's nonsense. That's marketing BS tools.
Yeah, certainly. And definitely to my point, I mean, when I studied public relations, I studied Edward Bernays very, very closely and Sigmund Freud. And these are techniques that are used to influence consumer culture. So the best thing that we could do as consumers is educate ourselves, empower ourselves so that we can make the best consumer choices. Now, Melissa, if you have anything to add, I'd love to hear you before we ask our audience if they have any comments or questions.
I mean, again, I think the majority of what Troy said there, the label mean nothing. They can slap all natural on anything, and really natural meat is often raised in the same terrible factory farm conditions that conventional meat is. It doesn't really mean much. They use antibiotics, hormones, GMO feed, etc. So you cannot go by what you see on the front of a package. You have to turn it over and read the ingredients. And again, packaged food should compromise no more than about 10% of your diet anyway, less if you're me or Troy, because we just like to feel good. We want to eat whole, real foods. And having been someone who felt so bad for so long, people often say, you're so disciplined in how you eat. You don't really ever cheat. It's like, well, I don't feel good when I cheat. So what's the point? When you get to a point where you're eating this way regularly, you don't want to go back to the crap because you are so in tune with your body. You realize it's just not worth it. You don't feel well eating fake food. So aim for that real whole foods and be good to go. Most people, I feel, and Troy, you will probably agree with me, they're walking around merely surviving. They're not thriving. Once you figure out what it feels like to thrive, you never want to go back.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. You just feel better and better, and you really don't know how bad you feel until you feel good.
Yeah.
So if you are someone that's just starting on this journey, then take the step, take the leap. The discipline really does pay off, and the education that you give yourself also allows you to progress and become more vibrant and feel better, and then you'll eat that spoon of sugar again, and you're gonna see the contrast when you initially started. So I'd love to leave a little time for any comments or question that our audience might have. If we can put some comments on the screen maybe. Awesome. So we have a comment here from Mary. Do you think people are not educated enough to know about the harmful food they consume? Should they be more educated regarding nutrition? So certainly. Who'd like to take that? Go ahead.
Well, absolutely. This is psychological warfare. This is spiritual warfare. Mm-hmm. People are bamboozled. They're lying, cheating, and stealing at every single level. I'm not religious, but I do believe the Bible says in these end times, everything will be inverted. And what are you seeing? And why don't things change? Well, the last I checked, the Diddy Diddler parties and the Epstein Island type of thing, there's blackmail going on with these politicians. There's blackmail going on at the highest level. All these industries are government subsidized. This is corruption at the highest level. So we're looking at brainwashing. Look at Operation Paperclip. Look at Operation Mockingbird, MK Ultra. This is mind control, plain and simple. People are shrouded in darkness, and it's all scientifically validated. How is that? Well, scientists are the prostitutes of the modern era. Whatever you can pay someone, they will say. And so and a lot of people have lost their connection to their soul and the truth, and they've sold themselves out for the almighty dollar, these magical pieces of paper that we have. People don't have values. They're not taught morals, a moral compass, a moral code. They're not in touch with their soul. This is deep stuff, guys. This isn't just about reading labels and food as medicine. Food makes up your whole body and consciousness. We are only healthy to the degree we are conscious, and we are only conscious to the degree we are healthy. And currently, consciousness and health is in an all-time weirdo position. 75% of the American people are obese or overweight. Childhood obesity, cancer, diabetes, these are all-time highs. They're coming after your children. They're here to snatch your children. It's time to wake up, guys. It's time to take the rose-colored glasses off, or put them on, because the blue blockers block the frequencies coming out of the devices that's programming us. Right? It's all programming. They use the slot machine technology from the mobsters in the '60s from Vegas. They took this slot technology and they're programming our mind. They're trying to give us soft cancers, weakening us, bamboozling us, hypnotizing us, and then feeding us these materials that give us soft cancers. The world's full of cancer right now. 1 in 2 will get cancer. Stand and be counted if you do not want to be a statistic.
100%. And the best thing that we can do as consumers is take our power back and really educate ourselves. Melissa, anything to add before we go to the next question?
They want to keep us sick. That's how they make money. Getting money off healthy people. So no one's about your health more than you will. It's not going to be your doctor. They're not even trained about nutrition in medical school. I was not trained about it in nursing. You have to learn this stuff on your own. And you have to empower yourself and your family to make better decisions. The healthiest people are the ones that have stepped away from the medical system and taken control of their own health. I'm living proof of that. That's why I'm so passionate about sharing this with other people. Because no one else is going to do it for you. Big pharma only makes their money if people are sick. So break away from that cycle. Start doing everything you can to be healthy with the way you eat, with the lifestyle you live, with the people you surround yourself with. Stress and toxicity also plays in our health. Just step away from the system and advocate for yourself and your kids. And I promise you, you will never go back.
I love that. I love that. Thank you both for contributing. Now, I think we have time for another question. How are we with timing now? Good, good. Okay, Raphael is tuning in and is asking, is there any book or website for which I can learn more about this topic? How can I stay informed? So just to quickly chime in, I know Melissa has an ebook, so when she gets to share, her lower third will pop up with her information. Would you like to start with answering that question, Melissa?
Yes. So ebook will be really helpful. I remember when I was in this process 7 years ago, I was so overwhelmed. What's really healthy? What's not? What products are good? What aren't? How do I navigate through all this deceptive marketing, labeling? I remember learning that grass-fed doesn't even necessarily mean it's completely grass-fed. It needs to say grass-fed and finished on it. Because otherwise the last 90 days it could be like grains and corn, and a lot of that could be actually genetically modified. And so you're thinking you're getting grass-fed meat when in actuality it's grain. It doesn't grass-fed and finished. Things like that were just very open to learn. And so the purpose that I put this ebook together was to take that overwhelm out for people. And I basically walk how to navigate food labels, how to avoid ingredients that are harmful to your health, and then also how to choose healthier food and supplements. So my ebook will definitely be helpful. And then there are so many natural practitioners out there. Dr. Mark Hyman is one, and you can just follow them and what they share and get a lot of information that way in regards to just how to live healthy to do. Instagram is my favorite platform, and I follow so many health-minded practitioners. They're just people like Troy and I that are passionate about this and are sharing. So there are so many different avenues you can go to learn, and I'm sure Troy can add on to that as well. I know he wrote a book.
Yes, I've got my book, Ripped at 50, A Journey to Self-Love. You can get that on Amazon. I have an online university, the Knowledge of Self University online community. It's $1 to join. You can join us there. We have the 9 Pillars of Health free download, which is the curriculum in my book, as well as I have a nutrition free download as well. If you get on my email list, you'll be updated to our meditations, our community, my lives, and if anybody doesn't have the money for the book, we will send it digitally to you for free. Just go to my website, certifiedhealthnut.com, and get on my email list there. Join my community for $1, and you'll be surrounded by other like-minded individuals. I have all my Certified Health Nut coaches on there as well. And I have a ton of free content all over the internet. YouTube is my dominant video source. I've made thousands of videos on there. Instagram, I'm on daily. TikTok, I'm everywhere. It's easy to find me. And we're always doing something either live in person or live on the internet.
I love that. Thank you so much, guys. This has really been an enriching conversation. And thank you, everybody, for your time. This is all the time we have for today's show. We are now coming to a close on our first episode of MB News. And I'd like to send a special thanks to the Mindful Body Productions team that supported in making this happen. I also want to thank our speakers for sharing their expertise with us. And lastly, I want to thank the audience for being here, because bringing awareness to these issues, this is where we as consumers can vote with our dollar and advocate for change. So for the next episode, we are going to be doing an episode on Unwrapped, expert picks for a healthier holiday season on December 11th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So please sign up to our email list by following the link or using the QR code so you can stay updated. Submit your video and join the next live. Have a great evening, everybody.